you. At this point, I would like to acknowledge that we are on the ancestral lands of the Mi'kmaq people. Thank you. And would like to thank the Mi'kmaq people of today for sharing these beautiful lands in Pictou County with our ancestors, whether they came 400 years ago or 4 years ago. We are all treaty people. Okay, and the next item is the approval of our agenda. Moved by Peter and seconded by Mary. And under, where did you suggest, Brian? Was it under?
Business not requiring action.
Business not requiring action. Under number 9, I want to have an opportunity there because this is the final council session of this 4-year term. We have 2 councillors that are leaving us for sure, and I want to give them an opportunity at that point to speak if they so wish. So that will come under business items not requiring action. Okay, is there any additions? No, I guess I shouldn't be asking that. Any questions on the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Are there any emergency resolutions this evening? Not seeing any action, so we'll skip past emergency resolutions and we'll go directly to our minutes from our last council meeting on September the 3rd. Are there any errors, corrections, or omissions in those minutes from September 3rd? Go ahead, Councillor Wadden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just on page 11, the second whereas, it's just a typing error. The youth, or the youth in this program is what it should be instead of his program.
Youth in this
Pardon me?
youth in this program.
No, it should be in this program as opposed to they have his program.
Yeah. Okay. Any other errors or corrections, omissions to the minutes? One final time, any errors, corrections, omissions to the September 3rd minutes? Okay, hearing none, I'll declare those minutes approved as presented. Now, in correspondence, we have a couple thank yous, which are always nice to receive from the Abercrombie Cemetery Corporation. Unfortunately, Councillor Turner isn't able to be with us tonight for sickness reasons, but that was in his area. And a nice letter from the Gaelic group that we received a council grant and all the work they did with those dollars. Always good to see our dollars, taxpayers' dollars being put to good use. Okay, any comments or questions on the correspondence? Okay, we'll move right along, and we have a presentation tonight from the Nova Scotia Department of Public Health. And we have 4 people with us here tonight, and I believe it's, hopefully I pronounce these right, Tabitha and Corridon are going to speak to us this evening. I'm not too sure what, but we'll find out shortly, on public health. This is not like we sometimes have with the local health system with the Aberdeen or whatever. This is public health, which we all got some to know more about during COVID. So I would like to ask Tabitha and Corridon at this point to 2 chairs right here and Mike's there, and the floor is yours.
Hi everyone. My name's Tabitha White. I'm with Public Health, so I'm the Public Policy and Social Action Consultant. Been with Public Health for 5 years, and prior to that I worked for a municipality in Alberta for 12 years, so a little bit familiar with council. I wanted to introduce my colleague. So Corriday is a health promoter with Public Health and works in the Pictou County network area. And we also have in the back Stefan, our health promoter, and Jaleesa, that is our nutritionist. They both work for Pictou County network area as well. And Jenna Snow is here as well. She's in the back. She is a harm reduction specialist with Public Health. So they're all here to support us and help answer questions if there's any that we might not know. So appreciate the opportunity today. So today with public health, we're just going to give an overview of public health in Northern Zone, what we do. I myself and my colleagues, we work in healthy communities area of public health, but there are other areas as well that I'll speak to. Just recognizing I don't work in health protection or early years, so if there's specific questions that we're not able to answer, we'll definitely take that back to our team. So in Northern Zone, we service East Hants to Colchester, Pictou County to Cumberland counties, so that would be all of the areas within our zone for Northern Zone. And then with public health, like really what we do is working with others to improve health and understand the needs of the community. So I'll get Stefan to click to the next slide here. I think it's, oh, Jaleesa, sorry. Jaleesa's going to be the clicker. So anyways, in public health, we're guided by standards and protocols. So those standards and protocols really outline the expectations for public health system in Nova Scotia. We've grown quite a bit in Northern Zone, so since maybe the last 3-4 years, we've probably got a third more staff than we had around the pandemic time. So even though we've grown, our core areas remain the same. So our core areas are health protection, early years, and healthy communities. So I'm going to touch on them briefly, and then Correspondence is going to go into a bit more detail around healthy communities and the role of our health promoters and nutritionists, because they're the ones that work a lot in community around healthy public policy. Next slide. Okay, so health protection, I think someone alluded to just the work during COVID, so a lot of people are familiar with public health when it comes to the health protection side. But with health protection, they actually have two focus areas. So one of their areas is communicable disease and disease prevention and control, and they work to prevent the spread of infectious diseases in Nova Scotia, so specifically for Northern Zone. And we have our health protection team is made up of investigators, so there's public health nurses, public health investigators, admin support, harm reduction specialists. They all work together. And when there's a disease that legally has to be reported in Nova Scotia, that's what we call a notifiable disease. So when those are reported, public health would investigate. So part of the investigation, the goal of that is really to identify where the disease came from, who else may have been exposed, and then public health looks at what actions are needed to reduce the spread of the disease in Northern Zone specific, and that's where the Health Protection Act really guides the work of the health protection team. So that's one area. They also work around immunizations. So we know with immunizations, they're among the most successful and cost-effective public health intervention really in history. So we have a team that works in immunization. So that team really looks to bring vaccines, free and routine vaccines, helping to support and facilitate access to those immunizations for our Northern Zone. And they also bring vaccines into the province through our provincial biodepot and help distribute the vaccines. So the immunization team for our Northern Zone give clinics out of our local office. They do clinics within the community. If any of you have had a grade 7 student, you might be familiar with some of our team members. We have a partnership with the Regional Centers for Education, and our immunization staff will provide grade 7 students with immunizations throughout Northern Zone and throughout the province. And then one other member of the health protection team that I mentioned was our health reduction specialist. So Jenna's with us today. It's a newer role for public health, but Jenna works across all our public health program areas, so supporting our whole team, and then works with community partners to look at how to advocate for policy or system change so that we can prevent harm, reduce stigma, and promote health. So we're happy to have Jenna as part of our team. And then moving on, next slide, to early years. So early years is another program area of public health that we offer in Northern Zone. That team is comprised of registered nurses and a team of allied health professionals. So they offer a range of services and supports for clients and families during the prenatal, postnatal, and early childhood period. So they provide guidance on things, questions around sleep, mental health, infant feeding, nutrition, growth and development, immunizations, parenting supports. So they're really there for the families. And partners and healthcare providers are encouraged to refer families to public health. So ideally during the prenatal period, so families are supported as early as possible. But families can also self-refer, so they can contact our public health office if they're looking for more information. And then one thing I'll mention is at the end of this presentation, we do have quite a few of our links. So if some of the programs you want a little bit more detail on, we have all the links embedded into the presentation as well. And then the next piece is really why we're here, is around the healthy community side. So our Healthy Communities team, we really focus on partnerships to improve health of the population, and we do this in a range of settings. So sometimes that might be in schools, that might be working with municipalities, politicians, decision makers. It could be helping to support or enhance bylaws or guidelines that lead to healthier communities. And we also have program support for the schools. So Health Promoting Schools, that is a school approach to health promotion, and that engages partners across the school community in planning, processes, and actions, really to improve student health and learning outcomes. So within public health, we have team members that work directly in the schools. So we have a school health promoter, a youth engagement coordinator. I don't know if you're familiar with the youth health centers, but the high schools in Nova Scotia, we have youth health center coordinators all across Nova Scotia and Northern Zone that work to support the students. And we also have a school nutritionist that works to make sure that there is equitable and inclusive healthy eating environments for students. And then we also have dental hygienists. So again, if you've got younger children or grandchildren, they may be familiar with our varnish program. So right now, our dental hygienists are implementing the varnish program across Northern Zone for eligible schools. So that would be pre-K to grade 6. So they're all part of the public health team. And then the other piece of that is really the health promoters and the nutritionists. So I'm going to hand it over to Correspondence, and she's going to speak a little bit to the work they do in community.
Thank you, Tabitha. And as Tabitha has rightly mentioned, we have a big team, and we have people with different variety of discipline in our team. But today, as she has said, our focus will be based on the health promoter and the nutritionist, because they are the ones that work directly with the municipal unit to understand health and action that impact health. So for Pictou County, we have 2 health promoters and we have 1 nutritionist. I have myself, Correspondence, and I have Stephen as another health promoter, and we have Jelisa, the one helping us to move the slide. Next, please. So just before we go into what we do as healthy community arm of the public health, we use a lot of lingo in public health. So one of the lingo that we use is upstream approach, and I just want to explain that a bit, because what upstream approach means is looking for the root cause of the problem rather than just solving the problem, solving the symptoms of the problem. So that's one of the approach that we use in public health, because we believe that will have an improved long-term effect on health rather than just solving the symptoms of the problem. So our health promoter and nutritionists are responsible for supporting this upstream approach, and the aim is to address the social determinant of health. And when we talk about social determinant of health, these are factors that are beyond person's control. And this factor could include something like access to health care, it could be education, affordable housing, food security, or unfair differences in health outcome. So those are the social determinants of health that we, and many more of it that we support as public health. And this factor shape government decision and public policies. Next slide, please. So in public health, another thing we always talk about is healthy public policy. So I'm going to explain that a bit more. So we hear the word policy a lot in our activity, but it could mean different thing to different organization or different individual. So for us in public health, more recently, we look at what is happening upstream, like I said earlier, especially with the social determinants of health, with the approach to lean into policy. And this is not to say that policy has been absent in the past, but we're just having a concerted effort on policy at this time. And when we talk about healthy policy, it aims to improve the condition in which people live, learn, work, age, and play. And our aim is to improve healthy public policy while we focus on health and equity in all aspects of policy, including housing, substance use, for example, when we talk about smoke-free spaces. And our effort is focused on influencing policy at a local government level with the goal of putting health in all agenda. So to do this, we strategically increase awareness of the implication of policy decision on population and community health. Can we move to the next one, please? The next one, please. The next one. So in doing our work, we actually use a lot of tools in doing our work. And one of the things we do, because many of our activities actually overlap and they inform each other, so we work with different partners in seeking to understand the issue with up-to-date data. So recently, we have this community health planning that has been updated by one of our units in public health. So it contains information about what is going on in different zones. So this is specifically for Northern Zone. It's been updated, and together we can collaborate to support policy and initiatives that are powerful influencer of community health. So a copy of this community health plan is in the package that we brought. So we have just few copies, but if you want an electronic copy, we'll be happy to share this with you. To the other side. Back to the previous one. So just before we go, we talk briefly about our activity as public health, especially the elderly community aspect of the public health. One of the things that we do is advocacy. So at the core of our work is working collaboratively on local public policy to improve population health and advance health equity. So that's at the center of our work. So in doing this, we actually go through advocacy. We also partner with other organizations to actually make this work. And another thing that we do is knowledge translation. So when we talk about knowledge translation, just like the one I shared earlier, the community planning health is a data that actually shows us what is happening in our community, which can, in a way, inform the policy that we talk about, that will influence the health of the people positively. So another thing we do in the area of knowledge translation is that when we have this data, because we know that in the way it's presented, it's not everybody that is able to interpret it. So our role in a way is to help to translate this data in a way that it could relate, everybody could relate to it, and it could inform policy at the local level. Thank you. The next one. The next one, please. So I think after all said and done, I think the next thing should be, how can we work together? Based on all this you have told us, as a municipal unit, how can we support ourselves and how can we work together? So thinking back to the purpose of public health and the role of health promoters and nutritionists in our network area, we have different areas that we can support. And like I said, at the center of our work is to work to understand the health of our community and together to improve health. That's what we have at the center of our work. And in doing that, we have some other works that we have supported in the past and we're still doing. One of it is work around equity, inclusion, and anti-racism. And we have food environment. We have another one around housing, active communities. Those are just few of the work. We have a lot of work that we engage in, but we just deal with the high-level one and just talk briefly about this. And I'm just going to give us a few examples of some of the works that we have supported in the community. One of it in the past, our nutritionists have worked alongside municipal staff in developing healthy eating policy in recreation setting and support community engagement, decision around food bank. And like I said earlier, we always partner. We don't do this work alone. We partner with other organization, community, not-for-profit. And today we have one of our partners in our midst from mental health and addiction. We have Adrian here. So because one of our area of work is also around substance use. So if we need to work in that area, we could partner with them. Currently, we have one of our colleagues that is working with the town of Westville on their municipal alcohol policy, and we also partner with Adrian from the mental health and addiction to work around this. And also myself and the nutritionist, we have had the opportunity to be in discussion about food network, food system in Pictou County. That's another area because we sit in committees to see how can we best improve the health of people in this area. So also in Cumberland, one of the things that we have, which is part of the northern zone, we have also worked with one of our health promoters, have supported a group of organizations to complete a recent service-based homeless count, which actually provide time and resources to the report writing. So those are some of the areas that we can support. And in case there is something that you want us to support and it's beyond our scope of work, we'll be happy to direct you to the other unit. Probably is not within, for us here today, we are from the healthy community. And just like Tabitha said, we have the early years, we have the health protection. So if it's something you want from public health and it's beyond the healthy communities, we'll be happy to direct you in the right place. Next, please. So thank you. Please feel free to reach out if you have any question. We have all our emails there, and we have some of the link right after, just like Tabitha said. So the links are all there, and I think we've shared this slide with the clerk. So if you need any information, we'll be happy to answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And at this point, I will open it up for questions. And I understand what you're saying. We always talk about health almost in terms of sickness. Health is, people are in the hospital because of their health, or people are at home with bad health conditions or whatever. But we all say that it's so important that we try and keep people healthy rather than only treat them after they're sick. So that's, I understand the type of work that you're doing, whether it's vaccinations in our schools or whatever. You're trying to help people to stay healthy. And some of us forget that message sometimes. But so I have some questions for sure, but I'll leave mine till later, and I'll open it up to council members if anybody has some questions and concerns for public health folks that are here tonight. Go ahead, Councillor Boyles.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. It's just something that happened to myself one time, and I'm just wondering how it works, and maybe they're two different departments, so it is some story. But I went to the hospital for I had some pains in the chest and the hand. So when they took me in, they wanted to check me for COVID. So they checked me for COVID, sent me back out in the waiting room with my daughter and everybody else. There was some pretty sick people out there. Then, I don't know, 10 hours later, I called back in, and then they told me, yeah, I tested positive for COVID. It's still nothing. You're going to let me go through the whole system. And then when I left, and a week later, I get a call from public health telling me that I had COVID and I should stay in the house for 5 days. So I was just wondering, is this translation somewhere, or is two different departments, or what was on there?
Was this recent, sorry, or like,
Pardon?
was this recent or? Oh.
I'd say about 2 months ago now.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure, because not sure department-wise, like in terms of direct client service, we provide like our counterparts in health protection, like I said, do immunizations, sort of the vaccination side. So depending on the treatment piece, I'm not quite sure if it was public health that was, calling afterwards. I'm not that familiar with the follow-up piece for like care, if it was primary care. But it has changed quite a bit over like our protocols for COVID too. So depending on the time, like even within our own hospital setting, you know what I mean? Like sometimes the protocols change in terms of what the follow-up piece is. Most of the messaging we're giving around COVID right now is, if you have symptoms, stay home. But I'm not familiar when you're in care what the protocols would be. I'd have to check with our health protection team. They'd be more up to speed on that because they're a team of nurses and pieces like that. So yeah.
When they did call, they said
Yeah.
it was public health call.
Yeah.
So that's just, it just meant, to me, I
Yeah.
just wondered
Yeah.
why, especially after being saying positive, they didn't give me a mask or something, or do something to protect the other people. It's just a question.
Yeah. No, it's something for us to
Okay.
follow up with.
We got further questions? Councillor Butler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for your presentation. My question is in regards to health protection and community clinics. In the past, my community in Lismore has hosted to a number of clinics annually, and we're getting sort of anxious, wondering if this procedure will be in place again this year.
And it was a community clinic you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay. Which community specific?
Lismore?
Lismore?
Yes.
Okay. I know online, like our health protection team, they have a map of where the clinics are currently scheduled for. I don't know offhand if that's one of the ones, but we can follow up with Dana. She's our health protection manager in charge of the immunization piece. So we can check online and then check with Dana to see what the plan is. Because I know there's constantly plans underway for different communities throughout the zone. So we'll make a note. I think someone's recording some of the questions, right, for us? Yeah? Oh, Julie said. Awesome. Okay, we'll follow up and then get back through. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Wadden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for coming up tonight. I appreciate it. It's not really a question. I just wanted to say that I work with Adrian on the MAP committee, and we have a great working relationship with public health, and they're a very important piece of the MAP committee, so thank you all for that.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Dave Parker.
Please excuse my voice, I'm not as sick as I sound.
Tell us.
The 4 years ago, as we went through the pandemic, maybe towards the end of that process, it became popular in some circles to oppose vaccinations. Do you people, or are you people doing any work to promote the need for vaccinations in young children and in the general population during a pandemic?
I know, well, that falls more to our health protection team, but I do know they've been updating all the website resources and then social media, just getting the word out about routine free vaccinations through Nova Scotia Health. So that is something that they do spend time on and is promoted. And even early years team, like I mentioned, our early years team, they also look at immunizations for infants and young children, and then we have the school piece. So it is something that's a constant, trying to get the word out, encourage people to get their vaccinations. So, and I would think with the flu and COVID season upon us, you'll probably be seeing a lot more too in the coming month in terms of promoting that as well. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, further questions, concerns for the public health people that are with us tonight? Okay, I'll start on mine. I guess I find that public health is generally in the background, sort of, to, the health at the hospital, I'll call it whatever, the health word is used there. We tend to think how long it's taken to get into emergency, how long it's taken to wait for this operation, that operational health as opposed to public health. But so there's a number of health issues that have become very controversial, and my brother Dave just mentioned the vaccinations as one. And I'm wondering how you fellows take a stand on that. And I'm going to mention one in particular, and it came up on one of your slides under social inequity, and that had both sexual orientation and gender. So, and you mentioned that you work with schools a lot. And schools and those two topics have become, not so much in our province right now, but certainly in New Brunswick and I believe Saskatchewan and Alberta, and it'll eventually spread here. It is here to some degree, but not as much. But those are very controversial topics in terms of how much children should be told at school, whether it's through teachers or public health or whoever, and how much should be left to parents. So I'm just wondering, how do you handle those more touchy or controversial issues when it comes to, if you're going to be going into the schools and helping them teach about healthy practices or whatever, when it comes to sexual health or gender, sexual orientation? How do you guys must discuss this and say, well, are we going to change what we're doing or whatever? How do you deal with that?
Well, we work a little bit different in terms of the community side, like on the policy front, like with our healthy communities, but the health promoting schools, like we do have a lot of staff, like you're right, that work in the schools, and a lot of it comes down to a lot of the relationship building with the schools, the principals, the education centers. So I know like our team, they work really hard to have that open kind of communication and sort of understanding where things are kind of moving forward with our partners. But at the end of the day, they're really there to care for the students and be a place where students can go and ask questions and feel supported. But again, it comes back to the relationship with the principal and the regional education center or regional education center. So I'm not sure in terms of the day-to-day how that looks in terms of our school staff, but I know they have ongoing conversations with the school team to make sure that we're able to support. And part of our role is to advocate. So it's the one thing about advocating is you need to have the relationship and the trust to really advocate. So that's really where we spend some time so that we can have those conversations. And if we feel like there's something that could be changed or improved, then we have that relationship that we have a medium to have that conversation with the schools.
Okay, thank you. It's just that these items, both vaccinations and this one to do with sexual orientation have become, at one time they weren't that controversial. Everybody got their vaccination, nothing was said. All of a sudden they become controversial, and so has where the rights of the parents, where the rights of the school in the school and whatnot have. So everybody has to change and adapt some, I guess, as these things change. The last one I wanted to mention, and the ones around the table have heard me mention this many times, is mental health. So I've heard the words mental health here a couple of times. And a group of all the municipalities in this county worked together over the last probably 4 or 5 years now, and had a group that works is mostly mayors and myself, but not all mayors, some councillors, on crisis mental health, basically trying to prevent suicides, and which is something we're told over and over, you can't prevent them all. No, we can't prevent all heart attacks, but we still try. I guess is what my favorite line is, but we worked hard at this with the Aberdeen Hospital over the last number of years, and we have gotten quite a few practices changed. So when people come in severe mental health crisis, they don't have to wait the 10 or 12 hours or whatever. That's almost the norm now to get in to see a doctor. So we're losing people all the time, good people, because something goes off track somewhere and people give up. And sometimes it's serious mental illness, and sometimes it's just something suddenly that happens. What role do you guys play, if any, in trying, not just on crisis mental health, but mental health in general? What's the role of public health in trying to help a whole lot of people out there who aren't connected to any of our health system and quietly go away? I just wonder what your feelings were on that.
I think it varies because we've got different team members across all the areas. So, as an example, early years, right, we have staff that work with young parents, first-time parents in their homes, so they're supporting them around parenting, but then other topics come up, in terms of access to different resources. So sometimes there's just conversations around what's available and connecting them with supports. That could be the case with our schools as well as connecting one-on-one with the student and kind of what's aware and what our partnerships are and what supports are available. Sometimes it could be advocating for a client in terms of like not being able to access a service. But then in terms of like our work, where we're more on the policy side and supportive environment, we know that with health and mental health, things are connected, right? If you don't have a safe place to call home, if you're, you know what I mean, aren't able to afford food for your family, that all affects your emotional and mental health. So we're coming at it, like you mentioned earlier, from that preventative side with our Healthy Communities team, is looking at what policies at a local level or provincial level would have it so that people have income, able to purchase food, able to have a home that is safe, adequate housing. So we come at it from that angle for mental health. And of course, we do work with mental health and addictions on that prevention side. So Adrian, as a health promoter as well. So sometimes that's looking at policies around alcohol and how do we have it so that a community has an environment that the choices, access to services, all of those things are available for people on that preventative side of things. So that's kind of how we work with the Healthy Communities team. But we do have, like I say, other team members that more direct client service, so they're kind of putting a different lens on how they can support people more with the intervention side. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything else, Corey.
I just want to say,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry. So I just want to say, just like Tabitha said, I think our own area, as part of the public health, we deal more with the policy around areas that impact population health. And some of our focus areas include the food security, the housing, the climate change, the physical activity, what again, there are a lot of it. So the substance use, so those are the areas. So what we do is, as part of the healthy community, sometimes we'll sit on committees that are actually developing this policy to see how do we bring health into this, how do we bring equity into this to ensure that, because we know that those are the social determinants of health. There are factors that are beyond person's control. How can we control this so that when we are doing that, we are improving the health of people? So we come from the policy angle. Like I said earlier, we talk about healthy public policy, which in turn will improve the health of the population.
Thank you very much. So if there's no further questions for our folks tonight, I want to thank you very much for coming in and for making the presentation. It's always at the top of everybody's list. I think as much as we're concerned about roads and all kinds of other stuff, health soon overcomes everything else. If somebody in your family or yourself or something suddenly gets sick, then that comes to the top of the list. So it's nice to know that you folks are out there working hard to try and improve our general overall health. Like I said, we go to the hospital when we get sick, but we need to do better on the upfront end, and it's nice to know that people are doing that and doing it every day. I mean, it's not a thing that you just suddenly fix and go away. It's doing it every day. So thank you very much again for coming in, and I'll at that move on. Well, I want to mention by name again. I got Tabitha's spelling right, or pronunciation. I don't think I get Cordy.
K as in king, O as in orange, R as in rainbow, E as in egg, D as in date, E as in egg.
And how do you pronounce it again?
Cordy.
Cordy.
Yeah.
I think I called you Cordin at the first, but Cordy. Anyway, thank you both again, and thanks to the support you had with you.
Well, thank you so much, and good luck for folks that are reoffering. I know it's election season, so.
Election season.
Yeah, good luck to y'all.
Tis the season.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move on then with the rest of our agenda. So the business items not requiring action. The report from the East River Business Park Business Development. Anyway, I think you all know what it is. Are there any quick questions on that report? Okay, not seeing any. The Riverview Home Adult Residential Center, I believe, Councillor Dave Parker, you want to speak on that?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I do. If I can keep from getting that tickle in my throat.
You're on.
We are in the middle of a transition that will take several years. We met this morning with a couple senior people within the Department of Community Services and a group of representing families of the have loved ones in the facility. As most of you know, there's a court-ordered remedy that lays out very specific things that must happen. In the case of the Riverview Adult Residential Center, they would like to have us closed 25 months from now. That's the main building. The 3 group homes that are on the side of our driveway will probably get 12 to 24 months longer. And we have 2 groups of clients. Most of the ones who are left in the Riverview Adult Residential Center are severely disabled, both physically and mentally in many cases. They will require the construction of specialized homes, which Riverview Home Corporation is prepared to do, I would say. We haven't started officially, but we have put many of the necessary prerequisites in place. That, in fact, will cover most of the residents who are left in the adult residential center, somewhere between 15 and 19 out of 24. The other half dozen or so, along with the 2 dozen that are in the group homes, as we call them, along the driveway, will be moved out to homes in the community. That means realistically probably Westville, Stellarton, New Glasgow, Trenton, and the immediate suburban area. They have to be where they can get services. They will be in homes that hold 2, 3, or 4 individual residents. We already have a handful of those, and we continue to look for more. Most of those, maybe all of those, will be acquired from the open market of homes that are available in Pictou County. That's how we've obtained them all so far. We believe we're well along the process to meet these timelines, and that makes us exceptional compared to the other ARCs in the province. Now, Department of Community Service are much more focused on policy. They're getting out of the housing business. They're telling us, go ahead, purchase, develop housing, but we're not going to be involved in it. They're involved in, right now, working through some of the requirements of the remedy, particularly that every individual supported by DCS, and that's more than 1,000 in the province, more than 2,000, I think, they all have to be individually evaluated. And along with their support group. This process is going to start, I think, early in the new year. So a year from now, we should have a pretty good idea where each resident and their each individual wishes to live, who they want to live with, what services they want to support them, what staff they may want to work with them. That will be as well, each individual resident will be given a budget that they will spend on those services that they want, and many of them will require guidance because they have no budgeting skills. So Riverview Home Corporation, and we may not be a corporation at the end of this. We're going to look at switching over to a community co-op model. Will, we hope, continue to offer services for those in our communities who are disabled. Mr. Clary McKinnon and myself, who are not reoffering, will be leaving the board. However, as many of you are aware, the recent passing of Rick Feehan and the passing in the spring of Eileen McKinnon, they were two longtime volunteer community board members. Clary and I are applying to stay on that board as a volunteer community member. There will be a requirement of this municipality and Westville to appoint a new representative. I will not be there representing the county, obviously, if I'm not elected. But we believe we are reasonably well positioned to meet the requirements of the remedy, probably much better positioned than any other adult residential center in the province. King's Rehab Center, for example, has 150 they have to place. And many of them will be like the ones that, the remainder that we have at Riverton, who will require a medical home. Now, a medical home is different from an ordinary home. Many of these people, they can't even get out of bed. So they need a lift, a rail, to take them from their bed to the bathroom. That's what I mean by medical homes. You can't find those in the open market. So we have a plan to build them. We have a contractor. We have a site. We have a design. Engineering's done. The only thing that's been holding us up is what DCS would say about us going ahead. Well, they more or less told us today, go ahead. We're not in that business anymore. We're not providing real estate to put disabled people in. That will be up to community service providers and up to the private sector providers that are out there. So things are progressing. We have a strong board. We're hoping that much of that will be intact after October 19th. Just to remind you that whoever is to be appointed needs to be available for daytime meetings. We meet 10 to 12 and 12 to 2 roughly on the fourth Thursday of the month. And we have some other special meetings like we did today. Thank you. I'm open to questions.
Thank you. I'm going to ask one right off the bat about paying. If the province says we're out of housing and stuff, who's paying the bill here then? Is the province paying it, or they expect other sources?
The province will be allocating an individual budget to every person. And then that person, with whatever guidance they have, and or with family, will decide how that money gets spent. So obviously there has to be some spent on housing, room and board, in some cases nursing care, in other cases recreational activities. Okay, they will determine how that budget gets spent each month.
So who then is paying to build these houses and all that?
We will be building houses. We will be financing them, maybe through the World Bank, maybe through the Municipal Finance Corp. And that cost will be amortized within the amount we ask for rent. So it's no different than, in fact, I think there's a significant business opportunity to build fourplexes and rent them out to people that have disabilities.
Okay, any questions at this point on the Riverview Adult Residential Home? Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and just through you to Brian. Brian, to appoint the citizen representatives, can we just do that, or do we have to change the policy, or how would that work? I think it's important to keep the knowledge there to go through this whole process, but I'm just not sure what the policy would be.
We appoint the elected, the board appoints, I believe, the citizens.
Okay, oh, that's good, okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Councillor Dave Parker? Go ahead, Cheshire.
I know, I brought this up several weeks ago or a month ago. I can't imagine how a judge can make the decision that these homes aren't going to be used for what they were designed for. And they were made up to snuff in the last few years, like millions and millions and millions still owed Riverview. Everything was the way it was going to be perfect. And when they were having the opening and they were announcing it was going to be state of the art for the people from now on, how this decision could just flip flop upside down. And what I'm really surprised is nobody challenged. Everything else you hear, well, they're going to appeal or they're going to do something. And like their Councillor Parker just said, those last 15 or 18 that are there, they can't make a decision. Some of them don't, any family can make a decision. And they're going to have some person or people or committee come in, not their people, and say to them, well, would you like in your own house? Well, who's not going to say yes or something if they can? If they can't, well, they're just going to check something off. And it's all going to be a whole bunch of questions all the way down. And those 3 new buildings going up the driveway, there's enough room for pretty near. If they had one more, it would pretty well look after everybody that's there now. And then this monstrous, well, that's not the right word, this large, up-to-date building that pretty soon we're going to have to find some use for. And there, I know, or I'm pretty sure, and some of the people I'm talking, and that is family members too, because Riverview is in my district. And those people, that's the only home they ever knew. They were there since they were dropped off when they were infants, or come from the hospital, some of them. But they don't know anything else other than that. The people that have worked there, they're worried about their jobs and everything else that goes with the change. But this is one situation, and it's not much different than the one next door. I don't think enough thought went into what was going on there. It was just, at that time, they wanted everybody to have private rooms and private bathrooms. Well, that's there. And what else do we need? Like, it's this word institution. They're so anxious to get word to that institution. And we will see that maybe not in the next 2 or 3 elections, but hopefully we'll see down the road, they'll say, we made an awful mistake. We can't afford to keep doing this. We'll have to bring those people back to somewhere, and then we'll start all over again. Because I know it's over 100 years old, and things weren't quite, certainly weren't the way they are now then. Things were done different, but things are done up to snuff now, and all those buildings are up to snuff. And I cannot understand why they have to change everything just for change's sake, because somebody else did it somewhere else. And I know that the board at Riverview can't afford to sue, because that costs money, big money. But I thought maybe back when that talk started that all the boards would go together, but other places, they're anxious to get something better. But we had the best, and now we're gonna shift the gauge. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dewar. Go ahead, Councillor Dave Parker.
I'd like to respond to a couple of Councillor Dewar's points. Certainly there are many in the families group that agree with you. They do not see this as progress. They're fighting to try to keep the best service they can get for their loved ones. We've assured them that, for the most part, and we wish to assure our staff as well, that there will be lots of job opportunities. The only recent example we have was the closure of, I believe it's called Riverview in Yarmouth, which had 26 residents. They built 11 brand-new buildings at a cost of $1.3 million each. So they spent $14.3 million on housing. I was at a meeting last Tuesday with the other ARCs, Adult Residential Centers. I think there's 7 of them in total. And they said there that it takes 3 times as much staff as what it did previously. So that'll give you an idea of cost. And it also gives you an idea of the opportunities that will be out there for our employees. And the main interest of the families is to make sure that their loved ones are well cared for, and for the most part, that the change is well managed and as small as it can be. In other words, the same people they become used to caring for them, and in some cases, the same roommates. So there'll be less disruption. But there is a significant feeling among many of the families, not just here in Pictou County, but across the province, that they threw the baby out with the bathwater. In order to satisfy 3 complainants, they've disrupted the whole system. And the cost, and I don't know what it was, X million before, is going to be 3X million after. So yeah, you're probably right. Some future government is going to look and say, oh my God, we're spending an awful lot on that. We need to pare that back. But at least in the transition phase, which is the next probably 5 to 10 years, there's going to be a lot of money thrown at it. That's how you solve the problem. You throw money at it. Okay, and if there's lots of money to support the individuals, for the most part, the families will be happy. Okay, they're not happy right now. They've let us know they're not happy, and we've explained to them what we intend to do to help reduce the trauma, because that's what it is, to their loved ones. It's not a perfect, we can't make it go away. But there's 24, I believe, right now in our group homes, and there's roughly the same number in our ARC. Most of the ones in the ARC are going to wind up in medical homes. I don't think it's any secret that we're looking to build 2 of those right away in the town of Westville. We will need as many as 4. But I'm going to argue that we don't want them all in one place. Because one of the arguments about institutions is that they're congregate, segregate settings. So we may put our other 2 medical homes in another town on another site. So we're not accused of that. But these are the practical realities of what we're working through, and we're working closely with the families. DCS is almost seen as the bad guy here, and in many ways they are, but they are the ones that are mandated to carry out the court order.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, and I know that your committee's doing everything you can to make it right for those people, but I don't understand the powers to be, why they think they have to fix something that's not broken. Thank you.
Thank you, and I think we have to remember here sometimes that, well, we may not agree with them, or maybe many of us don't. Judges, in many cases, make the decision that not governments, not legislative bodies, but judges make decisions that the legislative bodies then have to carry out, no matter, regardless of costs, regardless of opinions of various legislators or not. We saw it happen right here one time before every meeting. We had a prayer. And then some case up in Quebec, somebody ruled against that, and from then onward, we do it the way we do it because we're not allowed to have a prayer anymore. But in many cases, a judge somewhere makes a decision that affects, all the legislative bodies, and like say, common sense decisions and everything go out, and money and whatnot go out the window at that time. But we are where we are, and again, I thank the board there for doing the work they're doing, because it is a lot of work to try and, make this happen. The orders are given to make it happen, and, pleased that they're doing all that hard work for us. So at this time, we asked to be added to the agenda. I want to have an opportunity. We know that 2 of our councillors are on our table, that this is their last official meeting. And maybe more, we hope not, but, wishing the best to those around the table that are running for election. But we know that 2 won't be back. And so I want to, first of all, thank both Councillor Dave Parker and Councillor Don Butler for their service here over the last several, in Dave's case, many years. It's no matter how much we disagree at times over things, or no matter how much we debate back and forth, I think each one of us, the 12 of us, all add something valuable to this council and to this county's future. So again, I want to thank both of you for your service, and I want to give you each a chance to speak. And I'm going to start with Councillor Butler, since Councillor Dave Parker's voice will be getting more out of me. So you go ahead, Councillor Butler, and just wanted to give you that opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, I'm not sure if this is working or not.
Working now, the light's on.
Great. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me this opportunity. I've never been long-winded, as you know, over the last 8 years, but I do appreciate the opportunity from time to time to share my opinions and my input on various topics. It's been an enjoyable 8 years. It's been a real learning experience along the way. I think I've been a community activist for the past 28 years, and during that time, I have come across the council and the council's programs and policies as a citizen. And it's interesting to sit on the other side of the table and to gain a greater appreciation of how and why certain policies and programs are put in place. I think I had a couple of challenges along the way. Number one was to chair the Fire Liaison Committee. It was a somewhat controversial committee to be chairing, and it was made much more challenging by the fact that we were meeting during COVID, so a lot of meetings were online, and it was made it more challenging. As well, I chaired the committee that reviewed our recreation program, and in looking back over both of those, it's gratifying to me, and I suspect to many of you, to see that good things happen because of the work of both of those committees. And I certainly just was a member of the committee, so we had people who worked hard and diligently to bring forward fruitful results. So I have enjoyed, as I said, the last 8 years, and I think that I have a greater understanding of, as I go back to my community and can continue to be an activist, better aware of the policies and the programs that we can tap into in the future. So thank you for listening.
And thanks again, Councillor Butler, and I just want to say that you and I served together first 33 years ago at the first fully elected school board in Nova Scotia, or one of the first fully elected school boards, the old Pictou District School Board, and you and I were both on that first board 33 years ago, so the only difference, the hair a little grayer, a little whiter. Now I'll turn it over to Councillor Dave Parker, who's been here since, as long as Councillor Dewar, I believe, since 2000. So it's 24 years, and a lot of stuff has changed in that time. And Councillor Dave Parker, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If my voice holds out, I may be here for an hour or so. Seriously, when a politician's voice wears out, it's time to retire. Over the last 24 years, I've represented 26 different communities, including the western side of the Foxbrook Road. The first 8 years, that was part of my district. I've found people to be straightforward and sincere, and very, very grateful if you're able to do something for them, to help them out with, might be sending off an application to some program. It might be getting some bushes trimmed along the side of an intersection. They're very grateful if you can do anything to help them. So that's the rewarding part of the job. I'm going to point out a couple of policies that I believe have and will have a real important impact to our county that I was part of developing. The first one was our private roads policy, take over private roads, and I'll mention the Spruce Grove subdivision, Green Acres subdivision, both in Sylvester, and yes, there is a community called Sylvester, and the what was then called the Pump Road, now called Nancy's Way. Technically, it's in Hazel Glen. No, Hamilton Road, sorry. Those residents still think that I walk on water. It's not true, okay, unless it's January. But they're very, very grateful for the fact that, and it wasn't easy. It took 11 years to get that first policy in place. The first 8 years were futile. And I will give credit to former Warden Ron Bailey. He made a commitment to me, and he kept that commitment. And that's why those people, although especially the ones on Nancy's Way, I think they're in year 6 of 10-year payment. It's not a small payment, but they're still very, very grateful because they now have a good road. Okay. The second policy that has been evolving and is still evolving is on windmills. And I think we're on the cusp of a large expansion of the number of windmills in this province, especially in Councillor Butler's district, and that will have meaningful impacts to our carbon footprint, and it may have some impact on our budgets here. And the third one, which is still in progress, and we won't really know the full impact of this, is the internet project. There's lots of criticism out there, and maybe they're right. But what I do know, if we get it in place, is that it will impact this county in a positive way. And whether the county continues to own it or it's owned by some other organization, that is to be seen. But when you have fiber in White Hill and Millbrook and Lower Mount Tom, Upper Mount Tom, you have the ability to grow in your communities. That would never have happened if we had not taken that initiative. Those communities I mentioned would have never gotten serviced. So although it's controversial, although it's slower than we had hoped, it has the potential to make a very, very significant impact. I certainly want to thank the people of District 7 for the privilege of coming here, and it is a privilege. We've got a couple of people sitting down back. They're not allowed to talk. They don't have that privilege, okay? It is a privilege to come here to speak, okay? And it's an honor to represent them, and I thank them. I thank our staff. I thank my fellow councillors, both past and present. It's been a rewarding experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both of you, and you'll be missed for sure, and over time other people will fill those chairs, but it doesn't mean you won't be missed. I should have mentioned this earlier, but he was in disguise down there, so we do have with us tonight the MLA for Pictou West, Marco McLeod. So I want to acknowledge him. Like I say, he's in disguise and hidden in the corner there. So, welcome, Marco. We haven't come too hard on the province yet tonight, have we? Just on community services, maybe. Yeah. Okay, the next item on our agenda then is the business items that do require action. And so the first one is a review of the snow clearing tenders, and I'm going to turn it over to Logan to present that. Yes, it's conflict of interest, okay.
Thank you, Board, Mr. Chair. We issued our tenders for snow clearing. We chose to modify them this year to include options for 3 years. So the 2-year standard, which is what we normally do, which is the 2024-25 season, and the 2025-26 season, and add an option for a 3rd year for 2026-27. We received 13 bids. We were pleased with the number of bids we received, with several new bidders. The contents in your packages tonight outline the recommendations from municipal staff on awards for these contracts, based in most part on lowest value and lowest response time, and also with considerations made for the ability of the individual contractors to service their different areas. So some areas you might see rationale or best overall value, which takes that partially into account. We put these forward to municipal council for consideration, and happy to handle any questions.
Okay, thank you, Logan, and so we'll open it up for questions on the snow clearing. I am pleased to see them in early October. Some years we've been in late November, we get a storm around us and we're trying to decide who's going to plow the snow, so it is good to see them at this date. Are there questions or concerns? Go ahead, Councillor McKeel.
Mr. Warden, would you like a motion to get these on the floor?
Is that what we're looking for tonight, is a motion? Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
So I'll make the motion that we accept the Department of Public Works snow clearing tenders for 2024-25 and 25-26 plus the option for 26-27 as presented. I'll second that.
Okay, you've heard the motion then on the snow clearing tenders. Are there any questions for Logan at this point? Go ahead, Councillor Dewar.
With the complaints that we've been hearing in the last several months about some of these contractors, was there any conditions went to them? Because, like, I mean, you can't go all summer not grade a road, and you don't put calcium on it a week ago, okay? That's no good. It used to be they graded the road, say, anytime after the 1st of April. And by the time they did the second one, they put calcium. And you see now, some of them didn't get calcium until just late, and that's, what was that? It's going to start to rain, but they had all summer. And these are expensive properties. And I know I dealt with the Department of Highways, they said, well, they ran out of calcium and they did this and that, and didn't order enough. Well, just, you gotta start doing that stuff, right? But if we're hiring the same people to do the same work, and we're not satisfied with it.
In general, what he's
and
talking
we've
about
got
there,
the right to let them
do we have
go
any
after the
restrictions?
second one.
So we need to remember, Deputy Warden just reminded that we're talking about the snow clearing ones here, not the summer ones, but it's the same principle, I know. The principle is, do we hold them to account? Do we have any accountability? And I was going to ask that question myself. You know, what if that road doesn't get cleared of snow for 2.5 days? You know, where's the accountability? Is it written into the contract? We're not seeing all of that here right now.
Yes, thank you for the question, Councillor Dewar. You are correct that with the rest of the snow clearing contract, we have some bidders who also had some contracts with us for maintenance, so the grading, but not the calcium work. We do have controls built into the contract. I changed how we do these, how we're awarding or proposing to award these contracts to give the municipality even more protection and more leverage. Most notably, we've added a contract number 30, which is on-call additional services, which I'm pleased that we actually received 9 bids for. So that's why we're proposing to award multiple contracts for the on-call. So if we're not receiving good service, what we consider good service from those that win a particular contract or a particular road or segment, control built into these contracts as well, as opposed to previous years where contractors have been given the liberty to check the roads themselves and to determine whether or not they need additional maintenance. We're going to have more hand in the purge over the term of this contract and be directing paperwork in place. So those are the different protections we built into this contract, these sets of contracts, that we believe give us greater leverage in terms of making sure the work gets done. And if we have poor results from a certain contract, making sure that we move on to another contract at that point.
Okay, thank you. It'll mostly come down then to who's going to determine whether that's good enough service or not. You know, whether that's road, say, or sidewalk isn't plowed for 3 days, is that, you know, it'll be up to your department, I guess, to decide, you know, what the proper level of service is.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. But I do know where Councillor Dewar's coming from with some of the concerns that get expressed to all of us, I think, this past summer especially. But you did say that the chloride one was separate. But the chloride that was heard loud and clear, that putting it on at the end of September is really not meaningful. Any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Boyles.
I'm just wondering, do you have anything there, or what we can put in there, I guess, on that big storm we had, I mean, that was bad, people snowed in, people missing work and everything on over Ranch Road, and we gave work some of the people missed, and they did that. That's a big thing I've been finding on door that they're saying, my God, we're gonna do something. So could we have something there that, okay, if we had a big nature storm like that, you give them access to, you know, leased out and put pathways or something to, you know, to the different places. Is there anything like that that we look at?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Boyles, again, through you, Mr. Chair. That was a particular reason why we included this item number 30 for the on-call. It's not that we're necessarily going to go into people's driveways and private lanes, but we wanted to include options that give us an ability to contact these contractors, have fixed prices. It's possible that those decisions could come back to council in an emergency situation, similar to the tree clearing that we had a couple of years ago as well, to say, okay, we propose putting X amount of dollars, X amount of effort into this work. We have another extreme agreement, but we want to include those on-call items in part to give us pre-approved contracts to go ahead with these contractors. So that was the purpose of item number 30.
That should be an improvement, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, okay, any further questions before I call the vote? Go ahead, Councillor Wadden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, Logan, I'd like to thank you for coming up with this proposal for us. And I know the people on Hidden Cove Drive should be satisfied with some of the changes you made, because those were exactly the things we talked about. So I'm really glad to see that. So I'll be glad to let them know. And I'm sure having the earlier contracts will work well with them too. So thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing none, we'll call the vote on that one. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. So that's a good one to have ready before the snow flies. Now, I believe, Councillor Boyles, you're handling the next one on the Accessibility Committee with the absence of Councillor Turner. So you go ahead with the appointment resolution.
A resolution, be it resolved, the municipality of the county of Pictou appoint Nancy Cheung to its municipal accessibility advisory committee for a term ending in March 2026. Dated Pictou, Nova Scotia, on the 7th day of October 2024, signed by myself, Peter Boyles, and seconded by Councillor Chester. So seconded.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we appoint Nancy Cheung to our Accessibility Committee. And it's moved and, yeah, it said moved and seconded. Are there any questions on that or concerns? If not, we'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Now we're down to consideration of deferred business, emergency preparedness update. Evan, it's yours.
Thank you very much. We'll just give Adam a second here to get the slideshow up.
Take over.
All good? Okay, so again, thank you folks for giving me a minute to speak about this. I think it's very important to sit down and provide an update. As I go through this, I think it's important for us to keep in mind the people in Florida and the southern United States and what they're dealing with currently. At least after our storms, we had something to rebuild. It doesn't appear that they really have a whole lot to rebuild from, so keeping them in our thoughts for sure. So next slide, Adam. So in my presentation that I had done before, I identified a few key areas that we felt, and with the feedback of some councillors that you felt spots that we could sort of build on and construct out. So I'm going to go through those a little bit tonight. Next slide, please. So the first action item that we discussed was standard operating procedures, of which we have many. However, we are creating and implementing new ones. So we've created and implemented new standard operating procedures for all of our comfort centers. That is going to tell them how to open, when to open, important contact information, what to do in different sort of general situations. Obviously, we can't cover everything, but you know, what to do in those general situations. We're also working on new standard operating procedures for the Municipality of Pictou County. Those are mostly being born from the newly created Department of Emergency Services, our Internet Services Department, which have some specific needs for standard operating procedures, and just general expansion of employees throughout the organization. I'm also working on comprehensive SOPs. They're probably about 15% complete right now, and will likely take between 4 and 6 months to fully complete for Pictou Island. What these SOPs are going to be is basically SOPs for everything that can happen on that island. So medical calls, fire, flooding, hurricanes, you know, check every box. We're working on providing them with some standard operating procedures for the island. What we're seeing from our department on Pictou Island is that they're having a difficult time working with the outside agencies referenced here, JRCC, RCMP, EHS, and Coast Guard. And mainly the reason behind that is they don't have agreements with one another on how emergencies are going to be handled on the island. So every time there's a medical call, every time there's a fire, it's handled a little bit differently. And so that's creating some confusion, and that's something that we're working on straightening out currently. Next slide, please, Adam. The next action item that we discussed was communication. It was a large part of what we discussed, and it's a large part of what we're looking at building out. So in my last presentation, I referenced SimplyCast technology, which is an alerting software that we have here at the municipal office. So since then, we've rolled that out fully. We've done some advertising of that in our newsletters as well as online and on the radio on CBC. And to date, we've got around 500 subscribers. That's pretty good for just starting out. My hope is, though, to be somewhere in the thousands of subscribers, you know, 2,500 to 5,000, I think would be a good coverage. But again, the more we use it and the more we advertise it and the more it shows its sort of work, I think we'll see more subscribers come on board as that goes. Another area that I referenced in my last presentation was Access E11. It's another software that we have here at the municipal office. That has been designed specifically now for EMO, so we can use this to track issues as they come into our EOC. So if you call in, we can have our communications officer, Adam, taking the call. He can register that in the Access E11 program, and basically what that'll do for us is track it throughout the entire process, and it's going to give us a really good closure of that loop on the other end. Like, we've confirmed that task is complete, and now it's closed and it's out of the queue. That's something that we found was an issue with using different Excel sheets and Word documents and everybody kind of having their own. That loop oftentimes wasn't being closed. So this is an important one, especially for our EOC. I referenced a full-time REMO hotline in my last presentation. That has been established. It is up and running. The REMO hotline during normal times, so not during emergencies, is a voicemail. It will go to our REMO coordinator, who will get an email with the voicemail, and he'll return that phone call for whatever that inquiry may be. When we do set up our EOC during an emergency, that hotline will be plumbed directly to the EOC, and it'll be answered 24 hours a day during an emergency. As long as our EOC set up, that hotline will be answered. The question was asked also about the Alert Ready in one of our last council meetings, and who has the approvals for that. So CAO Cullen has updated Our approval's here, and now I've also got the ability to approve a provincial alert ready. And again, that's just about speeding these types of things up. So in his absence, I could take a call from our REMO coordinator, I could take a call from a fire chief, whoever that may be, and I can approve that alert ready. So that'll save us considerable time. And then just to add to the communication aspect, it's not completely for EMO, it's also for our fire service, but it is a relevant point. Our Hardwood Hill radio project, the tower is up, the radio equipment is on it, and it's being tested currently. The testing has been very good. It's shown really good results throughout the county in our dead zones that we've identified. And this is really the best time for us to be testing it because all the leaves are still on the trees. Once those leaves come off, the testing actually becomes a little bit more inconsistent because it has a clearer view to wherever the radios are being used.
Before you move past, go
Sure.
too far down the line, I have a couple of questions, but I want to make sure anybody that has questions as we go along,
Sure.
you know, rather than go right to the end and they might forget the questions, but, so the full, who has the ability to call these provincial alert ready? I know you talked some about it, and we talked about it last time. So if a fire department or other agency wants to call an alert because in their specific area, just to use Don's area, down Lismore, it's terrible, not the rest of it. Can the fire chief down there call the alert ready, or does it have to go through here and then you call? Or
No.
Brian?
It won't specifically have to go through here. They have the ability to request it and it be approved externally. They do, fire chiefs and fire departments have a greater threshold that they need to meet for the alert ready. It's looked at a little bit more than, say, if a municipality were to request it. What EMO is telling us about our municipal alerts is if we send one in, they're not even looking at it.
Yeah,
It's just
it's
going.
going.
It's just
Yeah.
going. The fire service side, they say they're gonna look at that a little bit more and make sure it's not duplicating maybe an alert that we had already sent. Maybe another fire department's already requested it, but it's gonna be a higher threshold for them to actually be approved for that.
And the other one I go back to is the first one, the SimplyCast technology. Do you want to explain again just a little bit on how, I know it's about getting the message out to people in a hurry, how that works?
Sure, so SimplyCast is essentially the same technology as the provincial alert ready. It pushes messages out to your device. The main difference between the two is alert ready is something that is sort of forced. It's gonna come to your phone whether you want it or not. Our SimplyCast is a subscription base, so you need to actually sign up to get our alerts. And essentially what it's used for is non-life-threatening alerting. So what I would use it for is if we have a hurricane that's coming, and I know the storm surge is gonna be greater than what some of our homes can maybe, withstand, we can actually choose those homes out of the map and send them a message to say, preemptively, here's what we're expecting. The storm surge is showed to be this much, and we recommend you take the following action. So it is really to be used as an early alerting tool to our residents before an event.
And it's working through people's phones.
Yeah, so you can choose how you want to get it. You can get a text message, you can get an email, or it'll call you. So it can call your landline at home and leave a message on your voicemail. It can call your cell phone, it can text you, it can email you, or it can do all of them. It's up to
But
yourself.
there's no cost to the person on the
No.
other end, the
No.
subscriber, so it's a free service.
Yes.
So one would wonder why wouldn't you have it? But maybe it's just because not enough people know about it yet?
That's likely what it is, and in fairness, I haven't advertised as much as I likely should have in the early days. Like I said, we've got about 500 subscribers now, and I hope to grow that into the thousands.
Yes, we
But it
need-
really is going to be social media, community meetings, getting that word out, the newsletters, all those types of things. It's about getting that word out.
Go ahead, everyone.
Well, thank you, Mr. Bowler. And Evan, you can sign up for that, like go to our homepage. Is that where you find that?
Yep, so they have a few different options. They can call the office here, and we can sign them up through the system, or they can follow our QR link, they can scan it with their phone, or they can just click the link on our website, and it'll take them to the registration page.
Go ahead, Councillor Boyles and then Councillor Dewar.
When you were saying that Hardwood Hill Tower project is being testing on both good results, are you going to be retesting the hillside hall?
Oh, sorry, so what I'm talking about is VHF radio, not internet. Yeah, so it's like the emergency radio communications, yeah.
And Councillor Dewar.
Thank you. Mine is just, it's the same thing with Hardwood Hill. So Barney's River
So they're paged off a different repeater. They're paged out of McClellan's Mountain. And it's working well for all stations with the exception of Blue Mountain. Blue Mountain has their own tower that they are paged from that they're experiencing some issues with, but there is some coverage issues in Blue Mountain.
So the areas that I spoke of, except Blue Mountain and its county, they're in good shape.
Yeah, yeah. All those departments are paged from McClellan's Mountain, and it's very good. Really, the gaps that we're seeing is your Pictou, Caribou, River John, Scottsburn, West River. That's really your sort of hole that we're seeing. Little Harbor is a bad one, Pictou Landing. So that tower will fix that.
Okay, he's gonna fix it.
Yeah.
Because at first, that was the 35 kilometers or whatever the circle was that was gonna be the best.
Yeah, and I think two different topics. I think what you saw was mapping from the internet. This is mapping for emergency communication. So it's two different systems. Yeah.
I was thinking more of the cell phone.
Yeah, no, this operates in a different principle. So it is, yeah, it is.
Okay, go ahead, unless I missed anybody. Go ahead, Evan.
Good. Okay, so the third action item that we referenced was following plans. I would say this is in second place next to communication, following plans. We need to follow our plans. So the MOPC participated in exercise Nova Bravo on May 29th and 30th. I had referenced this in my last presentation that we were going to participate. This is just the follow-up to say we did. The exercise went fairly well. I won't say that we got a great chance to exercise through our plans. It was very defined in its scope and what we were doing. It was basically a road closure. So it was a good exercise, but we need to be more thorough with our training and our exercising. So we'll talk about that a little bit here in a second. Further following plans, we're working with the Nova Scotia EMO on changes to the local REMO function. So the story's not completely out on how this is going to look yet, but there are some changes through EMO that are coming regionally. And one of those areas is what they call a REOC, or a Regional Emergency Operations Center. They plan to have one, I believe, either in Pictou County or very close to Pictou County. And its function is essentially going to be a satellite provincial coordination center. We, as a municipality, will no longer have to call up and try to talk to somebody at the PCC in Halifax. We'll be able to talk to our representative in our regional emergency operations center. So that, again, when we talk about closing the loop, when we talk about actioning items quicker, this is going to speed that up even more. So we're quite happy to see those coming. We're also preparing for EMO Nova Scotia's regional exercise, and that's being held in November of 2024. And this is sort of what I referenced when I said we didn't get to exercise through our plan in its entirety in Nova Bravo. This is a much more in-depth exercise that will take place over about 2 days, 2 full days. And really where we do our training mostly is actually in the planning stage. It's not in the exercise. It's planning up to the exercise. That's really when we bust open our plan. We have a look at, what if this, what if that, what if this? And that's where we identify the gaps in our plan. So we're going to be participating in this in November, and I'll have no issue updating you folks once we do that and what we've learned from that exercise, what we've taken away, and what we plan to change. Next slide, please, Adam. So the next action item is our Comfort Center network. So I'm just going to briefly touch on this. You'll see the sign in the slideshow. That's actually the signage that's going to be going on our buildings and has been placed on some buildings already. I believe 6 or 7 of them have got their signs up. So essentially what this is it's to label comfort centers as just that. Here's a comfort center, right? It's out front of the building. It's got the open sign on the front that they can slide out if they're not open. The number that's on there is our REMO hotline. So during an emergency, if they happen upon a comfort center and have a question and it's not open, they can call that number, or they can scan the QR code in the bottom where it says learn more. And that shows all of our locations throughout the county. And it'll show whether they're open, closed, and what the hours of operations are, as well as their address. So our grant for these types of purchases was approved in March of 2024. Phase 1 of funding is complete, and what I mean by that is essentially I've purchased and given out almost all of our basic supplies. So what I mean by basic supplies is the EMO guidelines. What do I need at a basic level to be a comfort center? Is it stationary? Is it medical? Is it toilet paper, paper towel, cleaning supplies? All of those things are part of Phase 1. So Phase 1 is complete. We have a few totes that still need to go out, but everything's organized, everything's ready to go out. Phase 2 is underway, and I plan to have the project complete by March of 2025. I need to have the project done by March of 2025 because that's when the funding ends. So it will be done by March of 2025. And we have 28 centers, as I said, receiving this funding. So this grant has done wonderful things for us, not just in terms of putting that money back into our communities, but in terms of creating that network. And what I've seen from that network, even over some of these smaller storms that we had where we really didn't have any comfort centers open, was the line of communication's always open. They're calling me, they're sending me a text message, they're sending me an email, here's what we're dealing with. Here's what we're seeing in our area. And from an emergency management perspective, that is priceless to have that on the ground community knowledge in the moment. So this has been a really good action item, and I'm quite proud of it. So next slide, Adam. Sorry? Oh, go ahead, Don.
Yes, I'm just wondering if you could elaborate on what phase 2 includes.
Sure, so phase 2 is essentially the one-off purchases. So when we went out and looked at different halls, some of them had different requirements. So, you know, there's some off the top of my head that needed a microwave. There's some that needed a coffee maker. There's some that needed tables or chairs. But they're all, it's not something that I would buy for every center. So phase 2 is nailing down all those one-off purchases and getting those out to those halls. And phase 3 will really just be ensuring everybody has their standard operating procedures, signage is up, everybody's on the same page. So, but we plan to have that done by the end of March 2025.
Go ahead, Peter.
That's puzzling to me. I just want to know, like you're saying, say microwaves.
Yeah.
And somebody might not have one, that'd be all right, but somebody else should have one. What is the difference between having one and not having one?
I'm not sure I understand the question, I'm sorry.
You're saying that on the microwaves, you said that's one of the things you pointed out. You said, you know, everybody would need one.
Right,
But
right.
you threw around and there's certain ones you think should have it. Well, that's what I'm asking you. Why? How do you determine who should and who not?
Oh, it's actually, it's very simple. Everybody should have one. So if you don't have one, I was buying one, essentially. That's how it worked.
We don't have one. Thank you.
There you go.
I figured that.
That it? Okay, so the next action item was training. We discussed this pretty strongly as well. Since the last update, we've had 2 MOPC staff take ICS 100 and 200 and complete that course and are certified in that. And so ICS is essentially the system that we run emergencies and you know, whether it's a wildfire or whether it's a hurricane, the ICS system is something that we all use in the emergency world. And so we're working on training our municipal staff so they've got a much better understanding in the moment of, you know, sort of what we're doing rather than coming in blind. So we've got 2 that have gone through that last year, and I believe we have 6 more that are signed up, 5 or 6 more that are signed up for a course coming in November. So that'll be good to have. Also added this year is what I would call recovery response. And essentially, this is a training course that's being offered as part of our basic firefighting program that we offer. And essentially what this is it's a takeaway from Fiona and our snow and ice event. I've been asked multiple times, what's a wellness check? You know, what's a wellness check on a person? What's a wellness check on a home? What's a wellness check on a vehicle? Like all those types of questions. So what this course is designed to do is give our firefighters who are going to be on the ground doing these wellness checks an idea in their basic training what to be looking for. So there's a large checklist that comes from FEMA in the United States as to what a wellness check is and what you should be looking for. And so that's what we're training these firefighters to do is here's what to be looking for, here's what to report back on, here's how to speak to the people that you're communicating with in the emergency. So I think that's going to be really good to see roll out. There's also state of local emergency training planned for MOPC staff. And there's alert ready training being planned and offered to the fire chiefs of our county. So there's already been some alert ready courses go out to our fire departments. I believe we've got about 50% that have been trained chief-wise. So those will continue to be offered, I assume, on an ongoing basis now that they've got that ability. It should be something that cycles like all their other courses.
Evan, could I
Sure.
ask on the state of local emergency training plan for MOPC staff? What's that one mean? Which staff are we talking about, and just what are you training them for local emergency?
So in this case, the staff is me.
Okay, I was picturing the whole building here.
Yeah,
Who
no,
all
it's
we gonna train?
it's
you know?
me.
Okay.
And essentially, it's really only relevant to those who are going to be intimately involved with calling or considering a state of local emergency, which I was over Fiona and then the snow and ice event. So I just want to learn a little bit more about it to
Yeah, okay, now
be
I
able to
just
furnish
wasn't
a better
sure who
opinion.
it all
Yeah, so
applied to.
I tried to make it sound a little bit better, but
Yeah.
you kind of called me out on it, so
Yeah.
I wasn't going to put for me in this presentation. But any other questions on the training portion? Okay, next slide on. Next action item, and it was a big pet peeve for me, was the delay in information getting back to the PCC. And so what we found was it was really about following our plans again. And I mean, a lot of these things, a lot of these slides I can reference back to the one before it, but it truly is follow your plans. And that was somewhere that we did fail throughout the hurricane and then again in the snow and ice event. Too many people off in the weeds dealing with very nuanced issues when we've got sort of our main arteries that are impassable. So it's really about getting your head in the right space and focusing on the right priorities. So EMO Nova Scotia is working on the creation of REOC. I already referenced that throughout the province. Local REMOs will be able to contact the REOC to pass along information, request resources. Having an office locally will improve our ability to communicate and close the loop, which is what I referenced earlier. So that truly is I believe, the fix, or a large part of the fix in our delay, is to have that REOC set up and have that person who understands emergency management operations reaching out to you back and forth, bouncing ideas off one another. And one of the shocking things that I actually learned about the PCC throughout this procedure is the people in the room actually don't have a great deal of emergency management training. The people in that PCC are accountants and logistics experts and those type, but it really is not a lot of emergency management personnel in that PCC. So I think the change to having a REOC, you'll have those people in that room, they'll understand what you're asking for, and they'll understand the need to close the loop, or I should hope so, because they've heard it probably 1,000 times. So action number 7.
Oh, go ahead there, Councillor Boyle.
Well, I was just wondering there, if you had, information and stuff like that, right? And you showed us a sign, you know, all those, yeah, number on it. How many people would be manning that line? You know, I mean, if you want to call in, I mean, they're gonna have just as much frustration if it's only one person there, so.
Sure, so typically over Fiona, I believe we had 2 people who were answering phones full-time. Over the snow and ice event, I believe, Adam, it just went to you, which was probably a little bit much for one person, so fair point, definitely taken well. That's part of the reason we're training further municipal staff in the ICS, so that we can pull them into our EOC and say, we need you to answer the phone, right? We need you to record this. And that's what really this is all about, is get the right people in that room, so.
And would you have like more than one line, like?
I don't think we'd ever change, like it would always be the same number, but
No, I mean, one line.
yeah, it would piggyback like to multiple different phones, yeah, exactly. Okay, so the last action item that I wanted to reference, and it really wasn't one that was pushed to me for action, but it's just the NS Guard. I just wanted to provide a little update on that. The Premier's told me in a meeting that thousands of people have signed up to be part of the NS Guard. Is that figure correct, Marco? Does that sound right? Not sure. Anyway, it was the Premier did reference, and he said somewhere in the range of 2,000 or 2,500 people have signed up already to be part of the Nova Scotia Guard, which is fantastic. He said that all training will be provided to the Guard members. But really what they're looking for, they don't want to have you call up and say, I'd really love to cut trees, but I don't have a chainsaw and I really have no idea how to run one. The Guard doesn't want to take that person and train them to run the chainsaw. They want people who have that ability to come and say, hey, I've run a chainsaw for 30 years. I could help out. They'll put you through a test to make sure you're competent in that tool, and then put you out in the field. So one of the other issues that they're working through, and I haven't heard an update on it yet, is their insurance coverages, such as their liability and WCB. There was some talk about them joining with the Red Cross, I believe it was, for liability insurance. Not entirely sure what their plan is for WCB, but that is something that they're working through currently. And the Guard can be requested by our REMO or a municipality. So it doesn't need to be a REMO request. It could be something very specific to the Municipality of Pictou County and not relevant at all to our other municipal units. We can still request the Guard to come to Pictou County. So that's how we would activate them. And I'll open the floor up to any questions you may have for me.
Okay, I first want to thank you, Evan, for the amount of detail that's here. I think that's what we wanted. We asked for a follow-up meeting on the original meeting because people are asking us as councillors all the time, are we any more prepared for the next emergency, which will come one day, than we were for the previous ones? And I think if they saw a presentation of what you gave us there, yes, we are more prepared. Are we totally prepared? No, I don't think we'll ever be totally prepared, and there'll be something after the next one that we want to improve. But I know you've done a lot of work on this, and I think it gives us something as a council to sort of stand on and say, yes, we do have some preparations. So is there any further questions? We tried to take some as we went along, but go ahead, Councillor Thompson, then Councillor Boyles.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Evan, I'm just curious about one thing that we talked about around this table, and I'm on this public safety advisory committee, I think, fairness to them, is around the whole idea of a voluntary vulnerable person registry. Has there been any talk associated with that? Because that was one of sort of the action items that came out of the whole provincial emergency management department setup.
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. I was in a meeting last week with a group of individuals, I believe from Community Services, on this topic, on vulnerable persons registries. From my understanding and how I understood that meeting to go was the province is still looking at different ways that they'll be able to roll that out, and they still believe it to be a provincial undertaking, I guess, was my understanding. So I haven't done any work from a municipal standpoint on the creation of a vulnerable persons registry. However, if that is what we end up having to do, we would have the ability to do that.
Councillor Boyles.
I'm just wondering, like, that number again that we had about, the side, okay, if something happens, and that line is down, do you have backup to try and find the information out that there's another number that you call, or, what do you do there?
So our phone numbers, including that one, are voice over internet numbers. So it's not a physical phone line that can go down. So it would be like we could switch, and Brian may be able to sort of touch on this a little bit better than I can from the technical standpoint, but from my understanding, the voice over internet phones, essentially it's not a hardwired line, so there's no line that can go down outside. It's all through the internet. So if something happens to that line, you can just click a button, and essentially that line is, I don't know, maybe you could fill them in a little bit better, but I know his question, but because it's voice over internet protocol phone lines, I think it would change that, right?
Yeah, I mean, there still is if the line is cut out here on 46 Municipal Drive, that it's down in essence, right? Because the hub is here, right? So, but Evan's right, it is voice over internet, so it will basically work. The only way it doesn't work is if our fiber line is cut coming into this building, right? So we have that ability, and the fiber routes are built as self-healing, so they will always find the path, right? So if it's cut out in Lions Brook and that's the way it normally goes, it will self-heal and it'll route around a different way. So it's really the physical line in this building has to be damaged in essence.
And we would have the ability as well to add, say, a cell phone number on, like we can go online to our dashboard, and I could plug my cell phone number in below my office line, and it will call my cell phone automatically. So that's something that we could do if that line went down. We could just have it, they could still call that number, but it would ring my cell phone, Adam's cell phone, whoever's. You're welcome.
Okay, is there further questions for Evan at this point? I have one last one, if nobody's got one. When an emergency happens, like we had the big snowstorm, we had the hurricane we're mentioning, but we had lots before that too. The job of Remo and all the other initials up there is to Yes, you said something about getting down in the weeds. You try not to get down in the weeds, stay with the bigger issues, but to the individual, a lot of times, who's seen as down in the weeds, that's the only thing that counts. And I'm thinking back to a circumstance that was actually in Peter's area. I can't remember the name of the road, but it came off of the Fraser's Mountain Road, headed down over the hill to Lynacy. No, not the branch. John Campbell. John Campbell, and the branch road to some degree. But again, those were very individualized circumstances. But to those people at the time, that was the most important thing in the world. They weren't looking at the big picture. They were looking at, I've got cancer, I need to get to the hospital, I finally got this appointment, I can't get out of my driveway, I need to get the road cleared. And, in the end, I may have told this story here before, but in the end, the gentleman took his tractor, even though he's very sick, plowed that John Road right down to the Lynacy, so he could get to the hospital next morning with his tractor. Not being very well, but he did it. That was his big issue. If we look at that over the whole area, yes, that's down in the weeds. But if we look at the person that, in that case, he called me on the phone, that was his only issue. How do I get to the hospital tomorrow morning? I relayed that to you folks at the Remo office or whatever, and everybody did the best they could. By the time they got there, he had at least cleared the track out. But, and that happens over and over and over. So what is down in the weeds to the people that are looking at the whole county isn't down in the weeds to that individual. So as councillors, we get the calls, I need help, that was just one of many, many circumstances. So how do you recommend us to handle those then? Is it to send it to the Remo, I guess, and say, here, deal with it? They're expecting us to get back to them and say, what have you done? That's the question I have, is where do we come into it as elected councillors? Just stay out of it? You can't do that when somebody calls you.
No, sure. Thank you for the question. And I think perhaps I did a poor job of explaining my position on this originally, so this is good that you've given me a chance to clarify. When I talk about down in the weeds, I don't mean us taking a call of a gentleman on the John Campbell Road who needs to get out for a cancer appointment. What I mean is the group of individuals sitting in our operations center, then taking that and trying to action John Q. Smith with his front end loader to go and plow this road and get to that driveway. And at the end of the day, we need to take that information, and the correct agency to actually action that was Department of Public Works. The best thing we could do for the gentleman on the John Campbell Road was to get that information to the PCC so that Department of Public Works could be engaged to do that work. So when I talk about down in the weeds, I don't mean you folks calling into the EOC and saying, Patty is stuck in her house and can't get out. I don't think that that's down in the weeds. What I'm saying is we as a collective group at the EOC shouldn't be dedicating all of our time in that moment to trying to fix that one issue, right? We need to send that through to the PCC for action, so Department of Public Works is aware, so that they can get out and action that sooner. But from our perspective, we need to be looking at, how's our fuel? How's our main arteries?
The bigger issue.
There's no point in Patty needing propane if every main artery between Patty and McGillivray Fuels is completely blocked with snow. And so when I talk about being down in the weeds, that situation actually happened, and that's exactly what I reference, is a group of people sitting in a room trying to figure out how to get a lady a propane delivery in King's Head at 8 o'clock on whatever night when she had 30% left in her tank, and the roadways all the way to her home were completely blocked with snow. So when I talk about down in the weeds, that's what I mean. We need to look at, okay, what's the bigger issue holding this up? Well, the bigger issue is simple. There's 6 feet of snow on all of the main thoroughfares leading to Patty's house. It's not the issue of her private driveway is blocked. It's the issue of the truck can't get there, can't leave the parking lot. So that's what I reference when I say down in the weeds. I don't mean I don't care about people's one-off situations. That's not at all what it is. It's just we as a group need to learn how to pass that on to the correct agency and not take that on ourselves.
So when you talk about completing the loop, okay, as a counselor, doesn't that be me, whoever they call, and then the counselor gets a hold of Remo, and Remo they're not gonna take the time to deal with that one individual, they're gonna pass it on to Public Works in this case, then who completes the loop so that the counselor knows, can get back to the individual and say, you know, who's dealing with it or whatever. Otherwise, all we know as counselors is that it went to Public Works and the loop isn't completed. We
Right.
don't hear back from anybody.
Right, and that was our issue as well. We also weren't hearing back from anybody, right? So we would send 30 tasks to the PCC, 15 of them would get done, and we would know that because we drove and looked ourselves, right? So if the PCC is not closing the loop to us, we can't go back to you and say, hey, that's been dealt with. And so that's where I referenced the REOC, those offices that are gonna be more regional. I think that's going to really help with closing that loop because it's putting more bodies on the issue. Rather
Okay.
than the accountant in Halifax or the logistics expert in Halifax, it's gonna be an emergency management trained individual that we're speaking to in their regional office.
Okay, it's just we have to complete the loop for us to, who am I looking at? Oh, sorry, I was looking too close. Go ahead, Peter.
No, I just wanted to, you were saying there, that we had the same thing on the branch road, remember? We had one drunk cattle and on the branch road. Well, finally, they got plow well, and plow the person to get him out of the, he had to get for dialysis or die. But you wouldn't believe trouble that caused. People seen that plow come in, turn around and then take off, and they're still waiting to be plowed out.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's stuff like that, we got to try and stop that for.
Okay, I want to thank you again, Evan, and we'll move on here. And this is a continuous process, obviously. This doesn't, we don't finish this. We just keep on going. So we will need updates as the new council takes hold here. We will need updates because we're constantly being asked, or I am anyway, what is it you're doing to help us? And this is a big help tonight for sure. Okay, so we'll move right along now to the, where are we at? That was consideration of deferred business. Community announcements. Okay, Brian's going first with community announcements. He told me it was.
I guess my community announcement, as you may have seen a month or so ago, NSFM, the Long Service Awards are no longer being offered or presented at the annual conference. So they were basically sent to the municipality for presentation. So we thought tonight's a good night to do it for the 6.
And they arrived at 4 o'clock.
And they arrived at 4 o'clock, so I got a text from Sue-Ann, and we said, okay, we'll sneak it in under community announcements because we don't need an agenda amendment. So, so I will present the first one, and then the person that receives the first one can present the remaining 5.
Okay. So our first one is for Warden Parker. He was elected in 2008, and it's 15 years service.
Thank you.
So the awards are given beginning at 10 years, and they go in 5-year increments. And we're doing a bit of catch-up tonight as well. Our next one is Councillor Debbie Wadden, elected in 2008 for 15 years. Yep. Next is Councillor Andy Thompson, also 2008 and 15 years.
Come on now.
And next is Councillor Randy Palmer. 2004, he was elected for 20 years. The next councillor we're doing a bit of catch-up with, because we haven't done these in a few years. So it's Councillor Chester Dewar, who is actually 24 years. He was elected in the year 2000. So this is his 20-year one.
Yeah, they have to do it every once in a while. Every once in a while. After your 50 years, we'll do it every year.
And lastly, our next one is Councillor David Parker, who is retiring tonight, or I guess in another few weeks. He was also elected in the year 2000, and his is 20 years, but it's actually 24. That's it.
I feel like Wayne, you should have one. Has the continuous service? Does it have to be continuous service? Should you not have received one?
Oh, yeah. I got a 30-year one somewhere.
Seems like you got all kinds of.
Don't get the mixed up.
Yeah, yes, that's right. Somebody on their 90th birthday, we couldn't.
That was my community announcement.
Okay, good. The rest won't take us long. Okay, we're still on community announcements, folks. Councillor Palmer and then Councillor Dave Parker.
Thank you, Warden. I'd like to ask for a moment of silence for Rick Fian, who passed away on Friday, September the 27th. Rick was not only a good friend of mine, he was also a valuable member of our Municipal Audit Committee. Rick gave his time and financial expertise to dozens of not-for-profit organizations throughout Pictou County. He was truly an amazing man. Please stand. Thank you.
Yes, we're certainly gonna miss Rick on our audit committee, and I know the Riverview Adult Residential, and like you said, other community places for sure, so, okay, we'll now move on to Councillor Dave Parker.
I spoke on Rick's behalf at our audit committee meeting last week. This Saturday morning at the Pictou County Wellness Center, the tree subcommittee of the Climate Change Committee will be giving away our annual hardwood tree seedling giveaway. We have 500 seedlings on order. They cost us $375 each. 200 red oak, 200 sugar maple, 100 red maple. They come from Charlie the Tree Guy in Old Barnes. We also give away with them a tree sleeve, a protective sleeve that would protect the tree mostly from deer until they have a chance to grow up through it. At that point, they'll be 4 feet or so from the ground. And we'll should have the ability to fend off the deer. That is 9 o'clock. It's going to start. Unfortunately, although there's no other way to organize it, it has to be first come, first served. We had hundreds of people apply. And if we're sitting there waiting for number 14, and they forgot it was tree giveaway day, I guess we'll be there all weekend. So it is literally whoever gets there first and gets lined up. We only 2 per property owner, and we will require them to sign their name, their civic number, and the community they're from. If it says Westville, we're gonna decline. We're giving them to people that live in the county. Okay? I suspect we're oversubscribed. That means there'll be some people that are disappointed. I guess that means I'll have to work a little more quickly next year. You cannot pick them up for somebody else, because it would then become very easy to say, well, I need 2 for my aunt, I need 2 for my cousin, 2 for my brother, and they go away 10 trees. And then somebody else is left short. So it's a strict policy of 2 per property owner until we're sold out or given away, until we've given them all away. There's no other reasonable way to organize it. So that costs us, I have the invoice here on my phone, a little over $2,000 for the trees. I think it's nearly the same for the shelters. It's the biggest expenditure that the tree subcommittee, and in fact, the climate change committee, makes in a year. It also, I believe, is the activity that has the most positive impact on the members of our communities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dave, and I want to mention this. Since the time the Climate Change Committee started, this has been one of the most progressive things they've done. They've tried a lot of different things and still are. A lot of them are much longer term, but this sends a message to people that this municipality is concerned about climate change. And here's one little thing you can do. And for many, people simply want a couple nice trees on their property. But that message is there that by planting those trees, you're doing a little bit to help with you're doing a little bit to help climate change, that you can do a little bit. So that's been a valuable message, I think, from this council to our residents. And secondly, I want to thank Councillor Dave Parker. He's headed this up now for the last 2 years, both the spring planting, or I believe the last 2 years, for the spring planting and the fall planting. And there is a lot more work involved than you think when you start doing this. Ed Kennedy did it from River John or Cape John for the first 2 years, and he found it a heavy workload too, just getting all the arrangements made. But the fact that we got all these people subscribing for them is good news. If we only had 100 and we had 500 trees, then you'd wonder if anybody really cared. But the fact that we're oversubscribed probably means that people do care. So again, on behalf of our council, thank you, Dave, for heading that up for the last 2 years, and it'll be somebody else's job next year. Deputy Warden Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. On October 19th, other things are going on besides voting. Scotiaban Recreation is having a networking day. It'll be from 1 till 4 in the Scotiaban School, and it'll come out all the businesses around the area of Scotiaban and area will be there, showing off what they have to offer the people, and everybody's welcome to come. Thank you.
Okay, and do we have any further community announcements? Councillor Thompson.
Hunter's Breakfast started up again on October 19th in Springville at the Church Hall. Well, I'm sure we'll see Councillor Dewar there, so there'll be lots of talk.
Okay, Hunter's Breakfast on October 19th as well? Yeah. Okay, and anybody else? Go ahead, Councillor Butler. We didn't forget you yet.
Not quite. Hunter's Breakfast as well in Kensieville on October the 26th from 8 until 11 in the morning.
Okay, so that's a week later on October 26th. And are these Hunter's Breakfasts, are they held on a regular basis?
So I should add that it's from October 19th every Saturday until December, the first week in December.
First week in December.
Yeah.
And is it the same in Kensieville, do you know, Don?
Just the one.
Just the one, okay. Eat lots because you gotta get through the season. Okay, now, is there any more community announcements this evening? Seeing none, I think I was at the bottom of the list, wasn't it? Adjournment. I declare our meeting, our final meeting for this council session is for your, I declare it adjourned. We made it through. Now, I gotta get these signed.